Oh, sorry, you just caught me. Scouting the world's next talent. Call me Ade Fabrizio. Right, he's not a scout, so that doesn't actually work. I have decided to go through all of the Premier League clubs and work out who is going to be your breakthrough star for this new year. I've been delving deep into the ball knowledge pits to predict who is going to take your club by surprise and become one of the new stars at your club. Now, there's a couple of definitions for this. It might be a player that's in the under 21s right now who's about to get his break. It might be a new signing who's come from a different league, or it might just be a player who's not been given a chance either through injury that is finally going to shine this time around. It's Premier League breakthroughs as well. So if I talk about a player that's done well in or relatively well in France, but he's still young, he's still yet to have his Premier League breakthrough, so he can still feature in this, if that makes sense. Anyway, if you're going to enjoy the video, slap a like on it. Let's get into this. We start, of course, with Arsenal, and for them, I'm going for a new signing. One that's under the radar. I can't lie, because obviously they spent a lot of money on Declan Rice and Kai Havertz, but Jurrien Timber, I'm telling you, is going to be at least top 2 of their defenders. They only play 4 defenders, so that's not even that good. But I'm telling you, he is going to be outstanding this season. Extremely versatile Dutch defender who played as a centre-back a lot for Ajax, but can play on the right and the left as well, and has done in pre-season. He's impressed a lot as well. And don't get it twisted, I'm not saying that nobody knew who Jurrien Timber was until I said it a second ago. Man, I really hope they sign his brother. Shiver me. But in terms of a Premier League breakthrough, I think in terms of expectations as well, I've not even seen people talk about Jurrien Timber as a signing that much. I genuinely think he's going to be a star for them at such a young age as well.
If I speak, I am in big trouble.
And Aston Villa, and don't worry, they're going to get less obvious than this in a second. There were some younger options of players who've featured in pre-season a little bit. Cameron Archer, who's back from his loan, for example, might get a run in the team. But I am going to go with the obvious option, and it's Moussa Diaby, who of course has just moved over from Bayer Leverkusen. Now, I'm putting Moussa Diaby here, yeah, because I know that people in the Bundesliga rate him, but I just don't understand why people over here don't as well. And I'm telling you now, he is gonna flourish. I hope, anyway. 9 goals and 8 assists last season, and he's here to steal Leon Bailey's job again. The Jamaican was not pleased seeing him walk through the doors at the training ground.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Over at Bournemouth now. Oh man, I'm actually starting this video with people that you already know. Django Ouattara. Okay, now this is someone who signed in January of last season from Lorient, I think, in France. He's a forward. You might know his name because he can't iron his shirts, and also because he scored a winner against Tottenham, or I can't remember what it was, but he scored a goal against Tottenham at the end of last season. I am expecting him to push on and have a really strong campaign, leading the line or out wide for the Cherries. He's a young forward as well, so he's only going to get better, and I think this will be a season where people actually start to talk about him properly rather than just him shithousing Spurs. At Brentford now, and it's a difficult one with them because they've not got a crazy amount of youngsters or youth players, right, that are close to the starting 11. So I've gone with, again, someone that actually signed last season for them. It's Keane Lewis Potter, who played for Hull before he signed for Brentford. He played 10 games last season, but didn't really manage to force a way into the starting 11. He can play out wide, obviously, and has played out wide in pre-season. He's been really, really active in Brentford's pre-season, which is maybe because of Wissa and Burma having to be a striker now, because they're missing Ivan Toney, rather than being players you might see out wide. So yeah, he's been very active in pre-season. He might force his way into the team for the full campaign. At Brighton, man, there were options for days here, I'm not gonna lie. I think that Julio Enciso has already had his breakout because he scored bangers, he scored screamers, he looks amazing. He's like an 18-year-old that they've just spawned from Paraguay, and Brighton have done that again because Simon Adingra is the player that I'm going to choose. Again, I could have gone with Enciso, but I feel like he's already had his breakout, if that makes sense, in the Prem, whereas Simon Adingra was out on loan in Belgium last year. The forward from the Ivory Coast got 20 goal contributions last season, including some really impressive performances, dribbling ability as well, and he scored a brace in pre-season as well. I don't understand how Brighton keep doing this, but I'm telling you now, if they can actually fit him in the team, he's got so many forwards and wide players, he is going to have a brilliant season. You're going to see him fully break out. Now, at Burnley next, and we get to the first of the promoted teams, and this is where the rules are going to change a little bit, because this is Premier League breakouts. And I'm going to be honest with you, Sheffield United are not going to have a youth academy graduate break into the first team age 17 this season. They need established players and people that have got Premier League experience to actually keep them up. Or the players that played in the Championship last season, or of course new signings. So for the promoted clubs, I'm also including players that have just never played in the Prem. So even though they might have performed really well last season in the Championship, Championship, they're going to make a splash in the Premier League as a Premier League breakthrough this campaign. So for Burnley, for example, I've gone for Anas Zaroury, the Moroccan, who obviously Burnley fans know and love. He was one of their best performers last season down in the Championship, but he's someone that, as far as I'm aware, has never played in the Prem. Should have definitely researched that before. And an extremely skillful handful of a winger, I think is going to do a great job in the Premier League. He got 6 goals and 6 assists in the Championship last season, so not all about output in terms of numbers, but someone that has that little spark of magic that I think is always quite useful for a promoted club getting to the top tier. At Chelsea, now this one's going to be maybe a little bit of a controversial one. I mean, first of all, there was about 806 players I could have chosen for this. I could have gone for Nicholas Jackson, who was at Villarreal last season and signed for Chelsea. He scored quite a few goals already in pre-season, but after choosing Diaby earlier, I wanted to just put my neck on the line. So we're going for another player that actually played for Burnley last season. It's Ian Matson, who can be deployed as a left back or act like a winger as well. And I think that versatility might be quite helpful. The only thing, of course, is there's a lot of competition for places for Chelsea this year. There's just so many players at the club. But he's got a lot of minutes in pre-season. He's performed pretty well. He's got himself a goal as well, I think. And of course, he got promoted with Burnley. So realistically, he's a Premier League level footballer. I think he'll get a chance, and I think he may well take it with both hands. Crystal Palace next, and we're going with yet another player that signed in January. It's Nauro Ahamada, who came over from Stuttgart in the Bundesliga. Most people honestly will not know who this guy is. I genuinely, on my life, thought he was like a youth player or something. But no, they actually signed him from Stuttgart for 12 mil last season. Hasn't had a chance, really, to get into the team. He was signed by Patrick Vieira. He's had like 10 substitute appearances, not played that many minutes, but he has got a lot of minutes in pre-season, so it seems like he's in Roy Hodgson's plans now. And as a 21-year-old who's pretty exciting, he did well in the Bundesliga when he did play. I think he could make a bit of a splash, and I think he could turn some heads at Palace. At Everton now this was a really difficult one. I mean, it wasn't at one point, because Jared Branthwaite, who was on loan at PSV last season in the Eredivisie, was really good in the Eredivisie. It's not like the craziest league, but it's still like a top 7 league, and Everton could have done with him last year. If he was coming back and actually wanted to stay at the club, I would have chosen him, but apparently he wants to leave. So I didn't want to go with a player that might not even be at the club this season. So instead I've gone for Lewis Dobbin, who was out on loan at Derby last season. He's got some minutes in pre-season this year. Everton fans are pretty excited and impressed by him. He's like Ellis Sims was last season, where he might just break out, play a random game, grab a random winner, and you never know. He might put his stamp on the first team. I mean, he's only got Neil Maupay for competition and Dominic Calvert-Lewin. And Dominic Calvert-Lewin's got to go Fashion Week at some point. So Fulham, pretty easy one for me. This is a player that kind of has to have a breakthrough season for me, and it's Carlos Vinicius, who, in my opinion, he's a decent goal getter. I feel like he doesn't get a crazy amount of game time in terms of he never gets a good run in a team, either at Tottenham or Fulham, but anytime he does, he seems to grab a goal. And obviously he's gonna get a run in the team because Alexander Mitrovic is leaving, or wants to leave anyway. Fulham have signed Raul Jimenez, but I don't think Jimenez is good enough to start. So for me, Carlos Vinicius is the option. He's got big shoes to fill in Mitrovic's. Mitrovic defo has size 12s in it. He looks like he's just a big man. People from Serbia, Eastern Europe that are built like that, average foot size 15. I'm telling you for facts. So they are big shoes, but it's up to him. He's a youngster, and I think in terms of positionally for Fulham, because they've got someone to actually replace, he's the best chance at someone breaking through. Liverpool next up. I had no hesitation with this one. Now, I said earlier Enciso wasn't going to get in because he already had his breakthrough. I'm not gonna lie, the logic changes as this video goes on, so I'm going with Stefan Bajcetic because I still don't think people rate him enough. I'm seeing all this talk about, oh yeah, we're letting midfielders go, yeah, we're signing more, we're signing Lavia potentially. Lavia is cold, yeah, but Bajcetic, I would happily, even if Fabinho left, Bajcetic can replace him. Honestly, he just needs a slightly more experienced understudy, if that makes sense. Someone that can come in, challenge him, or just, replace him in big Champions League games. But Bajcetic's raw ability is unbelievable, and I think people are actually going to realize that this season. He was unfortunate to get an injury just as he'd broken into the team for sort of 10 or 12 games straight, but you saw literally Fabinho was awful last year. Bajcetic comes in and immediately our midfield looks so much better, and he's still a child. So yeah, he's cold. I've genuinely not been as excited about a Liverpool youth graduate since Trent, and before that, fuck knows. Luton next up. Now, if they can get everybody out of the living room inside of the stadium, I genuinely think they might actually surprise people. Plus, again, it's a short commute, it's in a house, so if a player player's bedroom is in the stands, then can roll out of bed to a game. But anyway, the man who I think is going to make the biggest splash probably for Luton this season is their big old number 9, Carlton Morris, who scored 20 goals in the Championship last season. Again, kind of applying the Burnley logic here of no one who was sat in the under-21s last year is suddenly going to get a chance in the big old Premier League. So the players that are going to impress the most are going to be the Premier League sort of breakthroughs, and I think Carlton Morris will be. A 27-year-old who's never even got a look in at Premier League football. He's their penalty taker as well. If you need a cheap striker on FPL, he might be the guy. Manchester City now, though, and we are going for the youth approach again here. A young player who's been out on loan, who I think is going to get his chance to break into Man City's ranks. We've seen a few players do this recently with Man City. Phil Foden, of course, is the main one, but Rico Lewis even last year, who's come in and is just amazing and can play anywhere in defence and midfield. And another man who I think is going to make that step is James McAtee. Now, he was on loan at Sheffield United in the Championship in their promotion season last year. He got 9 goals in 37 games for the club, and as a midfielder, that's pretty decent. But overall, his performances were just class. Like, he was an upper Championship player, a great player for them to have on loan to push them for promotion. But crucially, Pep Guardiola came out and said he wants to actually give him some game time this season. So Pep Guardiola backs you, you're gonna break through. Now though, on to Manchester United, yeah? And there's only one man for the job, Johnny Evans, who is gonna break through, to be fair, into the under-21 squad, even though he's like 43. Now, we're going with the youth again, and we're gonna go with Kobe Minu. I don't know how to pronounce his name, man. I'm just gonna call him Kobe. He's on the screen. But basically, this guy is someone that United fans are really excited about, okay? He seems like the next big prospect out of Manchester United's youth academy, which is high praise, obviously, because there's been some really insane quality players to come out of United's academy in the last few years. Unfortunately for him, whilst he was playing against Real Madrid, might I add, in a pre-season friendly, he suffered an ankle injury, so he's out for 2 months. But like 2 months from now is like September, so he'll be back sort of start of autumn time. So he's gonna miss like probably the first 7 or so games of the season. But I genuinely think after that, with the faith that Erik ten Hag has in him, you will see him play at least 15 games, 20 games this season, which is a lot for an 18-year-old just coming out of nowhere for United. You know, Erik ten Hag has already proven that he is absolutely fine to give youngsters a chance in a team, like Alejandro Garnacho last year. I think Kobe is the next one. You know, the fact that he played a group of youth players against Wrexham so that he could rest his main squad for Real Madrid in a pre-season friendly, and then played Kobe against Real Madrid, means that Erik ten Hag firmly sees him in his senior squad for the year. Newcastle now, and this is a player that Newcastle fans will know a lot about and will have a lot of sort of hope and aspirations for this year. It's Elliot Anderson, Scottish wide man. Now, again, Newcastle fans will know a lot about him, but I think, again, he's a very underrated wide player. He should have had his first goal for the club last year, and it got taken away by some crazy VAR decision. But he's looked very, very sharp in pre-season. Personally, for me, he was their best performer in their most recent game as I'm recording this, so I think he could have a pretty big season, especially given at the moment Newcastle aren't really investing a mad amount in the wide areas. You know, Jacob Murphy was playing for them out wide last year. By all means, Jacob Murphy's been sick for Newcastle, yeah, recently, but like they're not spending 60 million on wingers, so there's a little bit of a gap for Elliot to sneak into, and I genuinely think he's good enough to do it. At Nottingham Forest, and I was a little bit stuck. I'll be honest, I'm not familiar with their youth setup or their under-21s. There might be someone that's coming through that's going to break in. What I do know is they're probably going to sign another 37 players, so it could change by the hour, to be honest. But for me, their true breakthrough, it's another player that I think Nottingham Forest fans already appreciate a lot, but other Premier League fans don't. It's Danilo, the Brazilian midfielder, who's 22. The fact they even got him, to be honest, last January is insane. Really good Brazilian young talent going to Nottingham is nuts. There hasn't been a Brazilian set foot in Nottingham for like 30 years, but he was imperative to their survival last year, in my opinion, and I think he's going to kick on and have an even better year this time. Sheffield United now the final of the promoted teams, and I'm going to go with one of their defenders, Anel Adanadzic. I'm probably butchering Amidozic, I think. We'll call him Anel for now, right? Bosnian defender. There was a lot of hype about him. He was a centre-back playing in Sweden like 5 years ago. Signed for Sheffield United permanently and was great last year. He's been deployed as a right-back for Sheffield United, but he can also play at centre-back as well, and is actually good in his attacking numbers too. I don't think a lot of Premier League fans realistically know much about him, but I personally think he's going to be one of their better performers this year. For Tottenham, a man that's actually got a decent amount of game time already for Spurs, and it's Sarr, who's a young central midfielder from France, who they signed, I think, last year. Now, I don't think he was really meant to get as much game time as as he did. But Bentancur was out for ages. Tottenham's midfield was just poor. So he ended up getting quite a few games. And I think he was a little bit underwhelming, to be honest with you. I think he just wasn't ready. And to play in a Spurs side that was really struggling under Antonio Conte, there's fucking fires that need putting out behind the scenes. And this poor child is like having to sweep up in midfield. But I think with that experience under his belt, there is a good player in there. A lot of French fans were really confused when he went to Spurs and like really struggled. So I do genuinely think he's going to turn it around and have a much better campaign this time. Penultimate team now, we got West Ham, the Hammers, who haven't really been active in a transfer window, given they've got 120 million pounds to spend from Declan Rice. So we are having to dig deep into the youth ranks, I guess, really, with the Hammers. And I've gone for Divin Mubama, who is a striker who made his debut in the Conference League last year. He got his first goal in Europe in like March. And he also had a great campaign with the young squads as well, winning the FA Youth Cup and also being a top scorer in that competition. He's a young striker that, again, has been very active in pre-season. David Moyes has been singing his praises and is really excited by him. And there is a hole at striker, in my opinion, for someone to really lock that position down. I'm not saying you're going to see him score 15 goals this year and play all 38 games, but you didn't see anything from him probably last year, and now you're going to see him play 10 to 15 games, look exciting, look like a prospect, and maybe body people like Michail Antonio and Gianluca Scamacca out of a place. And finally, we have got Wolves, another team that's not been very active in the transfer window. There were some options here. I was going to choose Sasa Kalajic, who was a striker that they signed last year, but then spent the whole year injured because of his knee. Trust me, I know, I've been there. Because I do think he is going to be someone who, hopefully for him, makes that striking position his own. He's a very good striker. He's quite well-rounded, and obviously didn't get a chance to really shine last year. But I am instead going to go with Hugo Bueno, the Spanish left-back. Again, one of those players that Wolves fans will know and love by this point. But he's someone that's just kind of appeared out of nowhere through the youth system during like the last sort of 9 or 10 months. And Wolves fans know him, but I don't think that many other Premier League fans are really aware of just how good he can be. He's a 20-year-old Spanish left-back who's made that position his own. I think he's going to, hold on to that. He's got Matt Doherty over on the other side, who's of course back now. And apparently he's got an identical twin. So if Hugo ever gets tired, you can just replace him with the twin and no one will notice. That, though, is it. Those are your breakthrough stars for the Premier League season 23-24. We'll come back to this at the end of the year and see how many of them have made an impact. I hope I'm right, because the scouting thing that I said at the start is it came with like a 80% give or take guarantee deposit. But let me know who you think is going to break through at your favorite club this season. Drop it down in the comment section. If you enjoyed, slap a like on the video, and of course subscribe if you're new. You can also follow me on social media. It is at @theofficialfng on Twitter and on Insta. But it's been a pleasure ranting at you guys today. Have a wonderful day, enjoy yourselves, and goodbye.